What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. 10-7 last week, including hits on Monday night, starting off this week hot with a hit on Thursday night, but we got trolled on the ladder of the week last week. We can never fade neighbors again, and McVay apparently does not feel the same way that we do about our boy Whittington. This week, we've got some great matchups, but as has been a trend this season, we've also got a lot of injuries to deal with when navigating these matchups. We're going to start off by at least talking about this Texans wide receiver room. That way, if we get some positive injury news there, we know how to act on it. So Tank Dell gonna miss this game with an injury. Nico Collins picked up a hamstring injury on Thursday. Friday practice reports will be really telling here. If he's limited again, if it seems like it's actually a concern that he could miss this game, I probably wouldn't want to chance it and do anything with his hire. But if Nico were to return to a full practice, would be good to go this weekend, then he's going to drop an absolute nuke. The Jaguars have given up the third most passing yards per game. They rank third worst in EPA per pass play allowed. They're currently the third best matchup for wide receivers in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. Nico already entering this game is basically matchup proof, like just how this offense works, how good he is, and then how good his connection is with Stroud. In pretty much any matchup, he's going to do very well. But when you remove Mixon, Pierce, which means they're going to lean more pass heavy, then you remove Dell from the equation, it's like everything is so locked in. They're going to hyper focus on him. So he'd have to get pretty darn unlucky to not go higher on his projections. Before the injury news was released, because they've removed it since then because they just don't want to have to deal with it, it was 78.5 yards, which is a really, really high projection, but it speaks to the fact that he's pretty likely to go over 100 yards in this spot. If, again, Friday practice reports come out, he ends up being fine, he's a full participant, he's good to go, I'm 100% taking higher on that. If the reverse happens, it's bad, he ends up missing this week, it's still a matchup I want to take advantage of. I have no idea what the Diggs projection would look like, but I'd be very interested in taking that one. I would probably prefer his reception total. Right now, it was at like 5.5. I've already taken higher on that, and I'd be good taking that as well, even if Nico were playing. But if they move that up to like 6.5, something like that, I'd be interested in that. My favorite would be the potential of Mechie, though. So John Mechie was tearing up camp, doing really well in the preseason. Like, there were teams that actually reached out to the Texans being like, listen, you got 3 stud wide receivers. Give us John Mechie. Like, he's clearly good. You're not going to use him. We want him on our team. They end up not doing that. Could work out for them this week if they have to lean on him. I do think that, like, their wide receiver room was just so deep that he kind of couldn't crack the rotation, but that he is a good player, that he does have some upside. So if we get Dell and Nico sitting, then I think for sure he's going to see the field. I think he's going to be productive if he does take the field. So again, a situation where I have no idea what Underdog is going to do for his projection, but I'd be really interested to see what it is, as long as it's not something egregious. Like if they put it at like 40, that's kind of egregious. We're probably not taking higher on that, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be lower than that. I feel like it's probably going to be in the 20s. And if it is, then I would definitely take higher on that. But again, I'll post the website if that ends up happening. I also really want to attack this Rams defense. We went over how they're just a smash matchup for the 49ers last week, and we kind of just got the player wrong. Purdy ends up throwing for 292 yards, 3 touchdowns with no McCaffrey, no Debo, no Kittle. Plus, in the same game, Brandon Ayuk posts the #1 win rate of any wide receiver on the season, but he had a couple plays called back due to penalties. He had a miss on a pretty long play as well. And then we just had Juwan Jennings smashing because he was also open on every single play. The moral of the story here is that with nearly the entire offense injured, Purdy still completed 22 of 30 passes for 292 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Rams now rank 2nd worst in EPA per pass allowed, 6th most schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, #1 matchup for outside wide receivers. And you've got 2 wide receivers on the 49ers open pretty much every single play last week. this is a very, very good spot for the Bears. But another situation where we're kind of watching the injuries. For this one, though, I don't care that much. It's the outside wide receivers we want, and the injury potential here is with the slot wide receiver in Keenan Allen. I'm not taking Keenan Allen anyways, so I don't care too much. You'd still prefer, obviously, Keenan Allen to miss this game, but they're just going to change the projection, right? If Keenan Allen ends up being active, projection goes down on DJ Moore. Inactive, projection goes up. So they're kind of already going to account for that. The matchup here is what we want. No wide receiver in the NFL has run more routes on the outside than DJ Moore this season. And again, no matchup is better for outside wide receivers than the Rams. Right now, as of recording this, I took higher on his underdog projection of 55.5 receiving yards. That is laughably low in this matchup. This is not only one that I'm willing to take straight up, just higher on 55.5, but I would be willing to bump that higher. As you will see at the end of this video, I am going to correlate it, or not correlate it, I'm going to add it to the ladder of the week for a monster pick this week. Again, for those though, when you start bumping them up, I wouldn't go crazy. So don't put DJ Moore to like the 99.5 that we're going to put it at the end of this video, but then also add that to like a 4, 5, 6 pick slip. At that point, like we don't need 1,000x, right? Like I would be careful. I would only do like the 2 that we're doing at the end of the video. Don't go way higher on a player and then add it to like a million picks. You're just not going to hit at that point. But if you want to put them to like, you can do 79.5, be safer, but I'm putting it at 99.5 and I'm adding it to the ladder of the week again as we go over. I would also add in Caleb Williams higher than 225.5 passing yards. If you're trying to do one where you're adding on more picks to it that aren't just the ladder, if Moore is finding success through the air, right? And if this matchup is as good as we think, and if, let's be honest, the Bears' ground game cannot get anything going, then it makes a ton of sense if you're taking higher on DJ Moore. If you think he's having a great game, it makes sense to add on Caleb Williams because it's pretty darn likely that he's also going to go higher than 225.5 passing yards. Not a lock, and it's correlated, so they'll give you a little bit lower payout than if you were actually just doing 2 different picks, but it would be correlated. It would still be good to add on. You can also stick with this game with our next pick on the other side. The Bears are the number 1 matchup for running back receptions and receiving yards. So I would take higher on Kyren, 15.5 receiving yards. He's gone higher than 25 in each of the last 2 weeks, and he didn't do anything in week 1, but he still had 3 receptions. And on average, he's going higher than the 15.5 if he has 3 receptions. Kyren is basically just the engine of the Rams offense. They don't have Puka. They don't have Cobb. And so everything needs to flow through Kyren in any way possible. They're going to just get the ball into his hands, and also fits really well with the Moore pick. If Moore is tearing up this Rams defense and this Bears passing offense is finding success, it's more likely that the Rams find themselves down. They need to go more pass heavy, and that's a positive for Kyren Williams. Another matchup I want to attack is this Seahawks at Lions game. The Detroit Lions are the 6th best matchup for slot wide receivers, and are a matchup that forces their opponent to lean a little bit more pass heavy, not only given their defense, right? They're stronger against the ground game than the passing game, but also just with their offense as well. Their offense is so good, especially at home, that teams can't just run the ball every play. It's also something that the Seahawks don't even really want to do, right? They're amongst the leaders in pass rate over expectation. Even if they do get Ken Walker back this weekend, I still think they're going to lean very pass heavy in this spot. JSN had a down game in week 3 after that breakout in week 2, but that was basically just game script. That was because they got up instantly. The Dolphins showed no signs of any sort of ability to keep pace with them. And because of that, the Seahawks were like, well, why would we push the ball downfield? Why would we go super pass heavy? We know that a Skylar Thompson-led Dolphins team is not going to catch us here. So run the ball, give JSN that low A-dot roll, play everything safe. There's no reason to risk anything. We're going to win the game as long as we don't make a massive mistake. That is not going to happen against the Lions. Even if Seattle does get up in this spot, they get up 14-0. They know that Detroit can catch up. They can score 14 points in 5 minutes. Like, that can absolutely happen. So they know they're going to have to keep being aggressive, keep pushing the pace, and they're not going to have JSN in that strictly low A-dot role again this week. His underdog projection is 48.5 receiving yards. I think he blows past that number well over 50% of the time. All right, ladder of the week time. And this one's pretty easy. Give me all the Marvin Harrison Jr. hires this week. He's looked fantastic these last 2 weeks, and we might get Trey McBride out this week with a concussion. Usually when players suffer a concussion in game, they miss a week and they return the following week. But even if McBride plays, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going off. Over the last 16 games, here are all of the stat lines for wide receiver ones against the Commanders. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith combined for 16 receptions, 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. Following week, DJ Moore, 8 for 230 and 3 touchdowns. Week after that, Drake London, 9 for 125 and no score. Darren Waller, 7 for 98 and a touchdown. Again, A.J. Brown plus Devonta Smith, 15 receptions, 229 yards, 3 touchdowns. I don't know who you would call the Patriots wide receiver one last year, but Pop Douglas, 5 for 55. Juju, of all people, in the same game, had 6 for 51. You then have Lockett and Metcalf combining for 15 receptions, 190 yards, and a touchdown the following week. Darius Slayton gets in on the action, 4 for 82 and a touchdown. The only miss here, CeeDee Lamb, 4 for 53 and a touchdown. You then have Tyreek Hill, 5 for 157 and 2. Cooper Kupp, 8 for 111 and 1. Ayuk, 7 for 114 and 1. CeeDee Lamb follows it up with a 13 for 98 and 2 touchdowns. Evans, Godwin combined for 13, 144 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then the last 2 weeks, Neighbors, 10 for 127 and a score. And then Jamar Chase, 6 for 118 and 2 touchdowns. So unless we are putting Marvin Harrison Jr. in the same category as Pop Douglas and Juju Smith-Schuster on the Patriots offense last season, he's looking like a pretty good bet to go higher than 67.5 receiving yards. The line should be and likely will finish around 74.5, but even at that point, we're not trying to barely hit here. The entire point of the ladder of the week is that sometimes we're going to miss, like Brandon Ayuk last week. But when we're targeting these explosion spots, when we hit, it's going way higher. And we're not just taking higher on the 67.5, we're taking higher on 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, and a parlay of 100 and a score. Again, that portion of the ladder of the week you cannot do on Underdog, but you can do bits and pieces of it. Underdog allows you to adjust the projection, and so you can adjust the projection to like 99.5 receiving yards and add that to other picks. As of recording this, I've taken all those legs on DK. That's the site that I would use for doing the just straight up ladder picks. But I've also, on Underdog, this is my biggest one of the week, I took higher on 99.5 receiving yards for DJ Moore, as we mentioned before, combined with higher than 99.5 receiving yards for Marvin Harrison Jr. That is 21.4x. If it hits, take that. If it hits, you basically lock in profitability for the entire season. And I'll do you one even better. If you sign up with promo code FFA before the games start on Sunday, you will also get a free square of Mahomes higher than 0.5 total yards. If you add that to these two, and that has a 100% chance of hitting, it goes up to 42.8x. And if you did sign up with my promo code, you're also getting access to my rankings every week for free, my picks every week for free, because there's more picks that are just in this video, my positional reports every week for free rest of the season. It truly is just the best deal in the industry, so not sure why you wouldn't take advantage of that. Also, if you want to get in on this action, but you don't want to actually risk anything, if you go over to my Twitter account, I'm giving someone who likes and retweets my tweet about this pick $250 if it hits. So that is a way for you to get action here without actually having to place anything on it. So good luck to everyone this weekend. Please like the video if you watched this far, subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and I'll catch you all on the next one.